Very top. Masseter muscle. Where's that?
On the side.
It's the cheek right here, right? The circular muscle that we all ripped through, so we're probably not going to have one, but it was that round muscle here on the side of the cheek.
One, right?
Yeah. That's the only thing you're going to have to know there. Their masseter muscle. You won't need to know the parotid gland, the mandibular gland, the sublingual gland, salivary duct. You don't need to know any of those, but do you know the function of all of them by chance?
To produce saliva.
Yeah, the glands produce the saliva, the duct carries it to the mouth, right? The palate, okay, the palate is the top of the roof of the mouth, right? The soft is in the back, hard palate in the front. Where are we now?
How would you even be able to see the soft, technically?
You can't. If we pinned it, you could use, technically you could just write palate and be fine. The nasopharynx, okay, is, oh shit, it's all ripped gone on mine. It goes right there. That's the nasopharynx. It's usually not pinned. It goes up to the nose. Okay. Glottis. So glottis, I can't really pin, right? Because it's just the hole where the epiglottis is, right? So here's the epiglottis. You guys remember this structure here? Right? It's a little flap. The glottis is the hole. We won't be pinning that. But the epiglottis is the flap itself, and we do usually pin that one.
Okay.
And we'll pin right through it. So if you see something in the back of the throat, epiglottis. Okay. Moving into the throat. Okay, so the larynx is the bulb at the top. We don't usually, that's not on the list, so you don't need to know it. But the cool thing about the larynx, it's a good structural marker. Okay, here's actually the thymus gland. You don't need to know that. Underneath, below the larynx, and in front of the trachea is the thyroid gland right here, this brownish thing.
That's the only gland we need to know.
It's the only gland you're going to be responsible for. You should know them all, right?
Of course.
Obviously, you already have one.
Behind the
Poor class.
behind the thyroid is the trachea, and the trachea is distinguishable, right? It has those cartilaginous rings, right? So you'll see a lot of lines going around the trachea. Behind the trachea is the esophagus. I don't know if mine has it. It's right here.
Okay.
Hold it out. It's the esophagus. Okay, so there's the esophagus. Another place to see the esophagus, if you guys remember, is from the back.
It's in the back.
And here's the aorta, but the esophagus is right there as well. Okay. So if you see something brownish and flat, esophagus, the white tube is the aorta, but we'll come to that later. Okay, the diaphragm. Mine doesn't really have it because it got ripped through, but here's a piece of the diaphragm right here. This blue thing right here. This is the muscle, right? Skeletal muscle, right? That contracts and relaxes to let the air come into the lungs and out. Here are the lungs, right? What's that? So yeah, heart and lungs. So here are the heart and lungs. Thymus gland, we don't need to know. Thyroid gland, we talked about. Liver is the big blue one. Stomach is underneath the liver. And it's the pouch, right? It's this pouch right here. Spleen is the tongue next to it, right? It's the tongue-like structure by the stomach underneath the liver. Pyloric sphincter, you won't need to know. It's at the end of the heart. It's a valve. The small intestines are over here, right? The smaller, looser ones. When it becomes the large intestine, you'll see it start to coil up, like right here, okay? The pancreas, you won't have to know it for the test, but it's below the stomach and above the large intestine. It's this thing right here. You guys won't have to know that, but you just know that. The pancreas in humans, though, is at the small intestine, so it's different. Gallbladder. You guys remember where the gallbladder is? It's inside the liver.
Liver, right? Yeah.
It's this kind of brownish thing inside the liver here. I'll pull it out because that way you guys can see it. It'll be pinned on your pig, but it's this brown thing underneath the liver.
It's the gallbladder?
Yeah, so if you see something pinned on the gallbladder, underneath the liver, it's the gallbladder, okay? It's brownish.
Pinned against the liver, you're saying that?
Yeah, but you can kind of see it there.
Yeah.
Is that just aid in what does that do? Aid in digestion?
It holds bile, it stores bile.
Stores bile, that's right.
The liver produces it, this stores it, and bile is used to what? Anyone know? Breaking down fats.
So that doesn't also store insulin?
Insulin is storage of glucose. It stores the glucose and makes it into, or it tells your cells that glucose is available for uptake.
But that's does the
No, insulin
gallbladder-
is the liver.
What?
liver only.
Yeah, liver only. Gallbladder only stores
Pancreas doesn't
bile.
have it?
It didn't
Okay.
pop.
Yeah. Okay, what else?
I'm so recording your ass.
You don't need to know the bile duct. The cecum.
The what?
The cecum is a little bit tricky, and I probably won't put it because of that, but where the cecum is found is where the small intestine ends and the large begins. I actually found it. It's this thing right here. Okay, so where you'll see the small intestine's over here, and then the large intestine goes away, right? And then right where that is, there's this like tail-looking thing that sticks out. This thing right here, that's the cecum. Yeah, so the small intestine's here, the ileum, right, where you guys were looking at earlier. And here's the large intestine, and here's the cecum right here. It's kind of like, it's where the appendix would be in humans, right? They have a cecum. Okay, so end of the small intestine, beginning of the large, there's this outpocketing called the cecum. Colon, so the colon is all this large intestine, right? It's going to come around, even this dark kind of brownish, greenish color is the colon. Don't forget that. The colon also extends all the way, right, underneath the urethra to throughout the rectum and out the anus. Okay. What's there at the bottom? I can't see that.
After rectum.
Rectum and anus. Okay, so that's just the colon, right? We won't usually put in the rectum or the anus because there's really no line of zone of differentiation between the rectum and the colon, so we won't do that. Okay, so that's the first column. Anyone have questions on that?